opinion. Must-hear radio. This is the Paul Finebaum Show live at SEC Media Days in Hoover, Alabama. And now, Paul Finebaum.
We're back live for the second hour of SEC Media Days. We will talk, as I mentioned, later in the show. We will talk to Jim McElwain, Vernon Hargraves, Commissioner Greg Sankey as well. A lot to do. And love to hear from you. We have a little bit of time here to visit, and we'll do that at 855-242-7285. In about, 20, when are we switching over? Is this hour or next hour? I can't remember. For television, I can't remember when we're going over there, but
we're heading over there at 5:30 Eastern Time, 4:30 Central.
Eastern.
And then when we get on television,
we'll have Coach McElwain. Yeah, okay. So I just want to remind our Florida friends we'll do that in the final segment of the show. I just saw Coach McElwain, which is what reminded me of that. Today it's a little bit of unusual schedule because we have today is a day where the press conferences started late. Beginning tomorrow through Thursday, they start early. So from a television standpoint, we will be on most of the show tomorrow, most of the show on Wednesday, and all of the show on Thursday. Obviously, all of the show on Friday as well. I realize the schedule the last few weeks has been nothing short of chaotic, but hopefully that is about to end. Speaking of the end, the long hiatus of Phyllis from Mulligan. I was on with Colin Cowherd today, and I don't know, I doubt you heard it, Phyllis, but I gave him just a piece of my mind about you. He was going right into a Phyllis take, and he said, have you talked to Phyllis? I said, well, unfortunately, Phyllis has been dealing with a lot of health issues with she and her family members, and that's why she hasn't been able to respond to your constant attacks. And Cowherd, for the first time I believe I've ever heard him to be speechless. Phyllis is back. Good afternoon, Phyllis.
Hello, Paul, and thank you so much for doing that. And I forgive Cowherd. I don't have any ill will towards him. I really don't, because it's what I did. The spin I put on his family name was wrong with me. And I want him to know that I am I
don't even remember. What did you say about Cowherd's?
I used his last name in a derogatory way. I called him Cowturd. That's horrible for me to say.
Obviously, I did know that.
But I do. I would like to ask his forgiveness for that, because that's not just his name. That's his wife's name, and that's his children's names. And I just hope someday he can forgive me for that. But anyway, it is so good to talk to you, Paul. I'm so glad to talk to you again, but it has been a long time, and I have had many health issues. Most of it has to do with my lung capacity. I'm on full-time oxygen now, and it has fatigued me it's just fatigued me so much. It's been overwhelming, and
Phyllis, let me say, I didn't know all the details, although I've heard, and that's one reason listen, Cowherd and I know each other well, but I felt like I needed to say that to him today on his program.
Thank you.
And you could tell he didn't like it, and I don't know, and I really don't care if he ever has me back. But I felt it was important to point out that you're not just a piñata. You're a human being who has real problems and deals with real issues. And I knew you were going through that, and I'm really glad to hear from you, first of all.
Well, God bless you, Paul, and thank you for sticking up for me. And I'm not going to use his name like that again, but I'm not going to tell you I won't nail him to the wall, because if he wants to come after me, it won't be any personal vendettas. It'll just be nailing him to the wall. And I have done it, I can do it, and I will do it. But anyway, what got me down the worst was my lung capacity now is down to 50%. So I'm real fatigued all the time, and then that caused other medical problems. So anyway, that's in the past, because I'm going to tell you something, Paul. As long as I have a breath in my body, I will take up for my beloved Crimson Tide. I will take up for my friends, Johnny from Coleman, Rich, I-Man, Matt and Lisa, Trey, James, all of them. You know what, Paul? You don't have an audience anymore. You have a family. You have a family all over this country. You are loved. You're not just listened to. People love you. You draw them in, and out from away from that microphone, they may get mad at you when you're on that microphone, but when you're in person in front of anyone, I will stake my life that you are a gentleman. You are respectful and one of the kindest men anyone could ever meet, because I've seen that many times because I was in front of you, and that's exactly the way you treated me. But I just wanted to let you know, some days I may not feel as good, but I will be calling in. I will be taking up for Bama. I am not gone, people. I will never, ever leave Bama until the good Lord calls me home, nor my friends. And I will always stand up for the downtrodden and the underdog. I won't let people be run over on this show. If they are too intimidated to call, I will call for them. I'm going to be me, nobody else but me, and that's the way I've been all my life, and I'm sure not going to stop now. And I thank the good Lord above for getting me to where he has, because there was some really rough times, and Donald is just hanging on, that's all. But the good Lord has got him through it, and I thank God for that. But I love all of you, all of y'all. You own a part of my heart, and I've never missed anybody so much in my life. And don't you let me dare forget I-Man, because I-Man is just a very special person to me, and we have a special relationship, and there's nothing in the world I wouldn't do for him. And Johnny from Coleman, I'm so glad that you're going to be able to meet him. Paul, he's one of the greatest people I've ever spoke to. He is something to behold. And Matt and Lisa, Matt getting married and everything, I'm so proud of him. I told him since his mama was number one, he was my number two son, and that's what I call Matt. And I'm sorry, I'm rattling on, but I'm just so happy to be back. And would you please tell my hero, he's one of my heroes, Greg McElroy, I said hi, and I am so proud of him, and I just love to watch him on TV. He is so handsome, and he's so smart. The man is brilliant. And people, if you don't like that, I really don't care.
Phyllis, it is heartwarming to hear you, particularly on this day when we really turn the page and start talking about college football all the time, not just 99% of the time.
Oh, I've read all the books. I've read everything that's been happening with the teams, Alabama and everything. And Paul, it's like I said last year, we're loaded. And come this way, people, come this way. But I think it was Marcus a while ago, or someone that was speaking about LSU. They're going to be someone to reckon with. They're going to be fierce. And I tell you another team that worries me, and that's Arkansas. But you know what? I think Bama's got it in them this year, but I want them to take it one team at a time, one game at a time. Don't get overwhelmed with the pressure from the fans. Just go out there and just win that game if you are able, and then just win the next, or whatever happens. I'll still be your fan, no matter what. If you never won another game, Bama, I love you, and I'm your friend, and I'm your fan, and I always will be, because I've always loved you. You're my beloved Crimson Tide. And Paul, I could not go this year without rooting for my Tide. I just couldn't do it. I don't have that in me. And it's, if I have to crawl to the phone, I'm going to get to it, and I'm going to be watching these games, and I'm going to be rooting for our players because they're special. They're great, and the heart that these young men have, people need to get behind them and understand just how hard they work to bring the pride to this state and Alabama University that they do. They need to get a lot more respect than what they do, each and every single one of them. And I just can't wait. I just can't wait. And I think Wisconsin's going to be a tough game because I think Wisconsin is a good team, a great team. But I just think Bama's going to be ready this year. I think they've got everything to back them up, and I'm so proud of them.
Phyllis, thank you.
You're so welcome, Paul. Thank you for having me back.
You bet. Talk soon. Jerome is up next in Birmingham.
How you doing, Mr. Finebaum? Good to have you back.
Hey, Jerome. Thank you so much.
Hey, listen, Paul, I don't have anything to rant about. Listen, I've been wondering where Phyllis been. It's good to hear from Phyllis, Paul, and we're going to keep Phyllis in prayer. And all I got to tell you, Phyllis, is roll tide and have a good day, Paul.
Thank you very much. Good to hear from you. Pretty quiet but poignant call there. Will in Mississippi. Will, thank you. Good afternoon.
Hey, glad you're back, my friend. Hope you enjoyed your vacation. And between Rich and Miss Phyllis, I might have to become a Bama fan. You know, that lady has heart, and she's just a lady through and through. I mean,
she's real, and I think that's the key.
Yes, sir. I just wanted to say how impressed I was with Governor Sankey. He seems articulate, almost presidential, but approachable at the same time. And,
Greg is very, very bright, and I'll tell you what, I was with him 2.5 weeks ago in Atlanta, where I was honored to MC the Farewell to Commissioners Live, and Greg got up there and just nailed the moment, which isn't easy to do, and he did it again today, and certainly you can't help but compare him to Commissioners Live, but he's his own man, and I think he ushered that in today. Had a nice chat. I was coming up in the escalator with Kathy Sankey, his wife, and she was nervous and obviously pulling for him, and she ought to be proud because he delivered tonight.
Really, kind of like similar to a guy we just lost recently, Kenny Stabler. The bigger the moment, the better they played.
Oh, no doubt. Yeah, Kenny was much better in the AFC Championship game than he was on the first Sunday of the year against the Bengals.
But shame on the Hall of Fame, NFL Hall of Fame, not to have him in. You know, I mean, I'm sure they're going to do it posthumously, but it's a little bit too late. But it's got to be done.
Yeah, but, I had a friend of mine years ago who had always wanted, some Alabama fans will remember John Forney. He was a dear man, and he was a play-by-play announcer. And he always wanted to be in the Alabama Sports Hall of Fame, never got in. Of course, the year after he died, they put him in. And to me, it may not have been the most mature thing I've ever done, but I refused to go to the ceremony because I just felt like, what's the point? Well, the guy can't enjoy it. Why do it?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And, he's only one of 3 starting quarterbacks that won a national championship and a Super Bowl. Namath, Montana, and Snake. That's it. Pretty exclusive. But I'm glad to have you back, my friend.
Thank you very much. And we're delighted to be back, and we'll take a break. We're live in Hoover, Alabama, for the SEC Media Days. Later in the program, we'll talk to Greg Sankey, the aforementioned, and Vernon Graves, Jim McElwain, Greg McElroy, Cole Kublik, a number of people joining us as we continue on the program. Our phone number, love to hear from you. The line's available right now, 855-242-7285. We're coming back to Birmingham. We're live in Alabama. That's an Alabama boy right there who may have lived in Alabama. There's some debate whether he grew up in Mississippi or not, but Jimmy Buffett's certainly associated with Mobile, Alabama. And our next guest is pretty much has become associated with Tallahassee, Florida, Mark Schleybaugh, the outstanding ESPN writer. And Mark, I'm sure when Jameis Winston left Tallahassee, you thought maybe my trips to the state capitol would begin to calm down, but it's been a brutal couple of weeks.
Yeah, I certainly didn't think they'd be as frequent anymore, but I think after the last one with Dalvin Cook on Friday, I think if you really read between the lines and Johnny Thrasher, the FSU president's statement, I think he's had a belly full of it. I think he's done with it. I think there's a lot of fatigue down there right now, and I think we started to see, if you believe what you saw on Twitter over the weekend, and I've got no reason to not believe it, that they're starting to take some corrective measures.
Yeah, and again, there are social issues and obviously legal issues, and then there are what does it mean to Florida State on the field issues, which our listeners probably care more about than the others. But what does it mean?
It made it be a big loss, and we got to reiterate he's only accused. It's a misdemeanor. He hasn't been convicted. Certainly his past transgressions.
He's been convicted. I don't know about that crime, but this guy has been convicted by almost everyone in terms of just being an idiot. Yep.
And I mean, we saw last night Andy Staples from SI, who's as good as anybody in the country, uncovered the fact that he had been cited a year ago in July 2014 for having 3 pit bull puppies tethered together, and 2 of them were choking. And we have all saw with Michael Vick when you abuse animals, and particularly dogs and puppies. A lot of people don't like that.
Yeah, I mean he's hit 2 of the hot button issues. You could possibly lose almost all faith from anyone, and that would also include a person who's hard to lose faith from if you're a player at Florida State, and that's Jimbo Fisher. I mean, is he just realizing that the narrative has changed post Jameis Winston, or could anyone in their right mind stand up for this young man right now?
It'd be difficult. And I hate it. I really do, Paul. I hate it for Jimbo. He's going through a lot personally with his son and his family and his with his wife. And I don't wish it on anybody, but he's got to take control of it. I think the narrative, and I may be wrong, I hope the narrative out of Tallahassee has changed over the last couple of weeks, or over the last week, that it's no longer blame the media, deflect, why are you attacking us? I think some people down there are finally looking in the mirror saying, hey, you know what, we got a problem, and we got to figure out how to fix it, because this can't go on any longer. And I think that's the point we've gotten to.
Yeah, and not to open a gash, but I mean that, and you've lived with them much more than I have. But that fan base down there just has not the entire fan base, but a section of it has wanted to blame everyone for everything other than themselves.
No, and I mean every time I report, or anybody reports anything for that matter, it's why aren't you looking at Alabama? Why aren't you looking at LSU? What about Joe Mixon at Oklahoma? I wrote about Joe Mixon at Oklahoma. I wrote about Jonathan Taylor at Alabama, and took Nick Saban to task for it. And I mean, Florida State, it just seems to happen a hell of a lot more frequently. And you can't, when you have a track record and you have a history and you're one of the top 5 programs in the country, I'm sorry, it's news. And these guys, the last 2 were Mr. Football in the state of Florida. These are big-time names, big-time recruits. But hopefully, like I said, hopefully they're starting to get some things fixed.
Let's move it to here. And Mark, you and I have been at this event many, many times. And it just started, and I realize it's a long week. But it does feel like things have changed just a little bit, forgetting or accepting that there is a new commissioner, but there's also a new sheriff. And it doesn't seem to be the SEC at the moment.
No, it doesn't. And, it doesn't help when you're starting with Vanderbilt and
no, I agree.
And Florida coming off.
Nick Saban didn't go up up the escalator. Derek Mason did.
No, Gus is here, and I think Auburn's going to be really good. But I think McElwain. I think I felt the same way about Will Muschamp. I think he'll do a good job in Gainesville. But it is different. I mean, this program or this conference right now is not the reigning champ, and that's Ohio State. And I think Ohio State's one team going into the country. this season, and I think TCU's maybe number 2, and I think there's maybe Baylor, a Pac-12 school right there. I mean, outside of Auburn and Bama, both with new quarterbacks. I mean, I just don't know.
Yeah, and I suspect. I mean, who knows and who really cares? But Auburn seems to be getting a little more love than Bama, which is a breaking story in and of itself.
The Iron Bowl's at home, right?
Yeah.
This year it's a Jordan Hare. I mean, I think Jeremy Johnson makes a huge difference. I think bringing in Muschamp as a defensive coordinator with Carl Lawson coming back, if they can get any sort of a pass rush and take some pressure off the secondary, we'll see if Blake Countess can help them or not. But they got to find a way to get pressure on the quarterback. We know they're going to score points. We'll give up 30 points a game. You should have a chance to win with that offense. But, I think Bama's fine. It's still Alabama. It's still Nick Saban. We'll see if Coker can win the job or not. They've had some off-field issues as well that, I used to seeing with a Saban run team, but they're not going anywhere.
Yeah, and I think that's and I think sometimes people get tired of hearing this, but Alabama is judged on a different level than everyone else. And when Alabama loses one big game, and certainly the Ohio State game was big, it becomes a story that is literally beaten to death.
Yeah, but I mean, if you look back at the way they finished and closed the last 2 seasons, I think there's reason to be concerned. I think they get, and you may disagree with me, I think Bama gets the benefit of the doubt more than anybody else.
But you wonder, though, Mark, I mean, every year on the first Wednesday, I mean, we talk about, this Bama class might be the best ever, but, and I realize they're winning. I mean, this is a team that was number 1 in the country in January, but you start to wonder, okay, if you get the best class every year, how do you ever lose?
Yeah, where are these corners? What happened to Reuben Foster?
Yeah.
And, I know, but, I mean, it's tough, really. I mean, to lose Blake Sims and T.J. Yeldon and Amari Cooper at the same time, I don't care if you're Bama or not. That's hard to overcome.
Yeah, I mean, Vernon Hargrave said today, and we'll talk to him later, that Amari Cooper's the best player he went up against last year, and that was obvious to anyone watching the game. But as far as the rest of the league, to me, you can pick and choose any story you want, but considering he's won SEC championships and a national championship, what do you make out of Les Miles at LSU right now? What's going on down there?
Needs to find a quarterback, needs to keep his kids out of trouble. He has as many off-field issues as anybody in the league, maybe anybody in the country. He just seems to have lost a little bit of the handle down there. And he's been there a while, but, with Chavis leaving, we'll see how he's able to cope without Chief, and they got issues. I mean, they haven't had a good homegrown quarterback in quite a while. Leonard Fournette's still there. We've got to replace some key receivers, but I'd still put them 3rd in the West, maybe 4th behind Mississippi State, Ole Miss. I think Mississippi State's going to struggle a little bit. I think A&M will be better. I think with Chavis and College Station and Allen back and bringing in Dave Christensen on the offensive line, I think they'll be a little bit more balanced than what they've been in the past under Summer. I think A&M's got a chance to improve.
You buying the Tennessee hype?
Buying it right now. I want to see results. I mean, I said a couple of weeks ago, we know they're good enough to beat Kentucky. We know they're good enough to beat Vanderbilt. He seems to have Spurrier's number. But I want to see you step up and beat Georgia or Florida or Auburn or Alabama or somebody that matters. They've been close. They just got to learn how to close. But based on recruiting success and rankings, I mean, he's gotten the job done. He's just got to figure out how to translate it onto the field. But I think they'll be tough. I think they get Georgia at home. Georgia's going to have a new quarterback. I think Georgia, Tennessee, Mizzou probably top 3.
And finally, we're chatting with Mark Schleybaugh at Spurrier. We both covered the league a long time. Everyone knows how great he's been. But it's hard for me to believe that that's going to be great anytime soon. And so what happens?
I think if they go 6-6, 7-5 or worse, I think he probably steps down. I wouldn't be surprised. I think he seriously thought about it after this past season. I think some people close to him, convinced him to stay, persuaded him to stay. You look at him defensively, I think they're still a mess. He doesn't have a quarterback. I think it's going to be tough. They lose to North Carolina early. It could go downhill fast.
And I don't remember. I mean, you lived through the Bowden era, and you covered it very closely and knew him well and wrote a book with him, I believe. But this is not a story that I thought was going to happen. Steve Spurrier being talked about as the old guy and people whispering. I mean, he was that guy that would say that about everyone else.
You know, when he won 10 games, 3 years in a row?
Yeah,
11. Yeah, you thought, maybe the son of a gun's going to get it done there. But it was just a place that never had any success until Holtz got there. And I mean, Lou took him to bowl games, but he didn't do what Steve done.
But it kind of crashed and
it
crashed
on
the way out.
Yeah, I think he caught lightning in a bottle with Lattimore and Clowney and some of those other guys. And, it's always been such a difficult job because you're not in the most populated state. You're struggling to get guys academically qualified, and then you're having to share the top recruits with Clemson and some other neighboring schools. So it's just a hard job.
Mark Schleybaugh, always enjoyed getting his take on college football, joining us here in Hoover, Alabama. I know you stay up late at night in May and June dreaming about your 4 days in Hoover every year.
It was 8. No, I'm not going to say that on the air.
We'll take a break. Thanks, Mark.
Thanks,
Mark
Paul.
Schleybaugh joining us. We'll be right back. We're live in Alabama for SEC Media Days.
Individuals and
SEC Media Days. Welcome back to our program. Monday of SEC Media Days. We'll talk to Jim McElwain in about an hour and look forward to that. It's been a good show. Really have enjoyed catching up with everyone, and we'll get back to the calls in a moment at 855-242-7285. And let's see here. Let's try Trenton in Alabama. Good afternoon.
Hello, Paul.
Hey there. Good afternoon.
I was calling to talk to you about some Auburn football.
Okay, be happy to.
Yeah, do you think they will jump from the bottom half of defensively talking, from the bottom half to the top? And Will Muschamp is with us?
Well, I don't think they're going to jump to the top from a defensive standpoint, but I do think, and I don't know if you heard the conversation we had a few minutes ago with Gus Malzahn, but I think Will Muschamp, you can't change the program around and you can't alter the players that are there, but they are bringing in a tremendous crop of young players, and I think it's just really what he's done off the field, the enthusiasm, Trenton, the whole aura that was missing. Ellis Johnson, he's taken a lot of heat. He did play a significant role, I think, in helping Auburn get to the national championship game. Yeah, I realize it was mostly offensive firepower, but that defense at times was good. Not often, but last year in the fourth quarter, the defense was absolutely miserable. Love to hear from you. 855-242-7285 if you'd like to give us a ring on any of the subjects. I thought a very interesting comment by Mark Schleybaugh a minute ago on Steve Spurrier, and I think Steve Spurrier is here tomorrow morning, and I don't know how much about his future is going to come up, but we just heard Mark, and Mark's one of the best reporters in the country, echo what we've heard from several other people in the Palmetto State, that Spurrier was very close to quitting. I'm anxious to get Spurrier's take on that tomorrow if he is willing to talk about it. But I think Spurrier is heading for really an awkward moment in his career. And I remember I was talking to someone last week for an article on Spurrier about how will it end for him. You don't expect Steve Spurrier to limp away from what has been an extraordinary career. I mean, we all know what kind of player he was. We know what he did at Duke and certainly at Florida, and the 3-year run of 11 wins a season in Columbia. But it just doesn't look like it's going to end well. And if he was very close to quitting last year, I'm wondering why he didn't. I'm wondering why he came back, because there's not much. Sometimes when you lean on people, they push you to come back because they're all part of the power structure. I've heard that before. But yeah, I mean, if Spurrier had left last year, people would have said, the guy had an amazing career. Didn't have a great finish, but if you go 11 wins 3 years in a row and end with 2 lousy years, that's unfortunately people do remember that. As great as Bobby Bowden was, you remember really a pathetic figure at the end of his career at Florida State. That could be said about a number of coaches. It's just still hard for me. Maybe I've been too close to him for a long time. Look at Steve Spurrier in anything other than that brash guy that we all knew and loved, and to see him limp out or being not so much pushed out, because I don't think they'll push him out. He still has so much capital. But just ending badly is not something that many people really want to see. 855-242-7285. You can give us a ring now. We'll have Jim McElwain and Greg Sankey on in the next hour. We will take a short break.
Investing in bonds.
Back live in Alabama, Bruce Feldman, a well-known writer with Fox, also is a best-selling book QB out last year. And Bruce, I know you've been here a few times because we've been here a couple of times together. And yeah, I always get the question from the newbies, man, I can't wait. But it always does start like this. There's not much happening in the first day, particularly when Vanderbilt and a couple other squads are bouncing around.
Yeah, it's a little more low wattage at this point, but I still think there's an aspect of, Greg Sankey speaks, and then all of a sudden we're looking around, and they brought in the players first into the big room, and here's, Jeremy Johnson, and you look around, I'm like, there's probably more people around him right now than there will be at, like, every other conference media day, but maybe the Big Ten. And it's crazy. Like, sometimes the head coach, maybe there's a little secret, sometimes some of the programs will bring up local media or a few national members up to a suite, and they'll have their own little media availability. And I went up to the Florida one, and Jim McElwain's in there, and he's making a joke. He was like, you guys weren't out here last year when I was in Vegas for Mountain West? And I wanted to say, hey, I went to that. It's at a casino. There's like 9 media members there, and it's way more laid back. This is that times 1,000. And, as a national media member, you just can't miss it, though. I think you feel like you have to be here because it's just kind of a spectacle.
Yeah, I mean, I was part of it today, but I was still like, what's SportsCenter doing here? I mean, there are a couple of other major events, but it is part of the lure, and I'm curious how much of this does the SEC is the SEC's creation, and having said that, how much are they paying for it now? Because this was a 7-year drunk fest of sorts. Look at us, and now the narrative is changing.
Yeah, I wrote about that today, where it's like, quote unquote, the 10 things to see, and one of them, the first thing was the drought. Right. It's like, well, they haven't won a national title in 2 years. That's not a drought, but by the SEC ridiculously high standards, that's what it looks like now, because you're on this big stage. It's almost like, Florida State has in all this bad. You forget in trouble and everything, and their fans are going, wait a minute, don't you see what's going on at LSU or some of these other schools? But it's like, you just won the national title. Your star player last year was in the news for the wrong stuff for like 18 months. So with that being up on that pedestal comes the good and comes the bad. And, but I think every other place, I mean, Jim Delaney would wish he could have this kind of for them, I think is the best way I would describe it, because you can do with whatever you want. I mean, look, for a guy like Vernon Hargraves, who I think represents himself in Florida really well when he speaks, I think that's a great thing for them, because, we have 1,000 media members here. Even if Nick Saban and Les Miles and Steve Spurrier aren't out here today, all these guys are going to go somewhere. We can't all go to Chick-fil-A for lunch for 8 hours or whatever. So if you can, utilize the stage. If I'm Derek Mason, I am trying my best to captivate people and get people to believe. Not because they're going to recruit us, but you can get your message out a little bit and get some momentum that way.
Bruce, from that national perch, which you have and have had for many, many years, what if the SEC doesn't do it again this year, and it is Urban Meyer?
Ooh, that's a tough pill to swallow, because he came from Florida. Now he left, I don't want to say with his tail, between his legs, but he got overtaken by Alabama. And a lot of times, you can look at it and say, okay, well, maybe this is flipped now, because look, they're the odds-on favorite to win the national title. And I think, you go back not even 10 months, and everybody was. It was a punchline for the Big Ten that, Ohio State loses to Virginia Tech by 2 touchdowns at home, and, there was other losses in the league. Well, the reality is that didn't happen overnight. All those, the Big Ten had been losing bowl games and had been embarrassed, and Michigan, which is one of their glamour schools, has had, one top 25 finish in the last 7 years, and Penn State had their issues that, left them reeling. So the fact that Urban Meyer has helped lead Ohio State and kind of lead the Big Ten back to prominence is interesting. Now, can he sustain it? That is the hard thing, because, he did for a little bit, and then it all collapsed in Gainesville. But I think for people looking at it and going, man, let's see if he can do it. And then all of a sudden, the best program in the country will not be in the SEC. And I think, to a lesser degree, if you were to ask people at this time last year who's the best coach in college football, I think, the overwhelming majority would say Nick Saban. If you ask them right now, I think a lot of people would say Urban Meyer. If he wins another championship, I think Alabama gets further and further away from where they were that night when they just smoked Notre Dame in Miami. I mean, that seems like a while ago now. And I was just down there in the spring game, and you look at it, and they have more big D linemen and more athletic big people than anybody in the country. But if you don't win, and if you don't have a big-time quarterback delivering in clutch situations, it doesn't matter that much.
Yeah, and I mean, you mentioned Saban and Meyer. I was reading, again, everyone has these polls, but one of our colleagues did a poll of the most influential people in sports, and Urban was ranked ahead of Saban. 5 years ago, Saban was on the cover of Forbes magazine as the most influential person in all of sports.
And yeah, wow. And, look, if you look at it this way, you can trace it as some of their proteges go on to get head coaching jobs. Well, this past offseason, it didn't take long for Tom Herman to get the Houston job. Now, that's not like he got the Florida job like Will Muschamp did, but, when you start seeing kind of their fingerprints on a lot of different places, that's where it goes to. And I think, like you said, all that stuff is subjective, and if Alabama goes on to repeat, which hasn't happened in a long time in the SEC, it's going to flip the other way. Nick Saban didn't all of a sudden not get very smart. I just think things kind of tweak a little bit, and we'll see how it goes from there. And I'm very curious to see what happens in this state alone, because a lot of people think, including myself, despite losing a lot of starters, that Auburn's going to have a really big year, and that's a lot of credit to the other coach, and Gus Malzahn.
Yeah, and I know you were there, and he repeated it when he was here about 30 minutes ago, but Malzahn made it very clear that game is in Auburn this year, and he's not backing away from it. Bruce Feldman from Fox, always great to catch up. Looking forward to our next conversation, Bruce.
Thanks, Paul. Always good to be on with you.
You bet. Great stuff. We're live in Hoover, Alabama. More phone calls. Jim McElwain in the next hour. We'll be right back.
Hi.
ESPN Radio.
With the action on the court, the diamond, or the gridiron.
Comes alive.
The NBA.
The Golden State Warriors, NBA champions.
Major League Baseball.
San Francisco Giants are the champions of the baseball world.
The new college football playoff.
College football playoff national champions, the Ohio State Buckeyes.
Your home for the best in sports play-by-play.
ESPN Radio.
And now, for Geico's edition of Stuff Found in Your Car, we go inside your side door pocket.
Hello, yes, the crumpled receipt with gum in it. From your anniversary dinner, you sprang for expensive wine, your server was Beth. That dinner was a couple $100. Money you could get back if you switched to Geico and saved hundreds of dollars on your car insurance. I bet you'd save that receipt. Frame it even. But really, where did I go wrong? Was it the corkage fee?
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance. Visit geico.com today.